Cheeseheads. Welcome to a midweek edition of the Cheese Room podcast. Because Craig's decided to up sticks and go on holiday, you're stuck with me hosting tonight. Sorry for being late. A few technical issues in the house. I think the son's hammering the new FIFA game or whatever it is he's playing on. So down to three because we're waiting on James, who's obviously a little bit late at the snooker club, but we'll get stuck in. Firstly, top right on the panel tonight, Jack. How are you, mate? All right?
I'm doing great. It's a lovely day. Fall, I think, may have finally arrived in North Carolina. It's about 26 degrees, almost no humidity, bright sun, and feeling really good. Glad to be on with you guys.
Oh, look at you. It's pissing down here. And at the bottom, one of my usual Wednesday night partners in crime, HG. How are you, mate? Shoulder still playing up?
My shoulder is still playing up, sadly, yes. I haven't gone back to work yet, but I do have an appointment tomorrow at the hospital, and hopefully that means I can go back on Friday because I'm bored of being at home, and I'm pretty certain my home is bored of me. So, I want to get going again, but I'm all right. Spurs are winning. That always helps.
Mate, I mean, we don't want to get into it, but if you're off sick and you're getting paid, brilliant. You know what I mean? As long as the pain ain't that bad, that would be brilliant. I'd love that.
Yeah, no, as of now, that is still the case. That's the way the system works. But yeah, there is part of me that's like, I might have lived it for a very long time, but the culture of that, like, I'm still very British in my way of like, I don't want to take time off. I want to work every day. I want to do my job. And I know that there are lots of Austrians who will quite happily take a day or two here and there because the system allows it. But I'm not one of those people. So it's been 2 weeks now. I want to go back.
Yeah. I was only joking. Obviously, I want to work all the time, and even if I'm getting paid for not being off, obviously. But yeah. Anyway, let's forget about that. Last night, fans forum. I think we had a member of the Cheese Room crew there, didn't we? Said it was a good evening. Jack, what do you think about the idea that they held this forum? They've got Ange there, Son. What are your thoughts on it? Good idea or just a bit of publicity?
I mean, we'll talk about the details, but overall, I'd say it's a good idea. I don't think you can ever. I think a club that puts leadership on display and answers directly to the fans, however those fans are selected. I recognize there's going to be a lot of people who complain about who gets into that room, and I understand that, but you're not going to bring in people who are going to be obviously hostile. But I think anytime the club communicates and you hear from the chairman, you hear from the coach, you hear from captains and of the teams, I think that's always a good thing, and I think they should do more of that. I think that should be a routine, and maybe you get more fans involved over time and not just select from the same pool. But I think it's a good idea. I think they made the right decision.
HG, your thoughts on it?
I mean, you asked if it was, PR or a good thing, and I mean, it might be both. It obviously doesn't hurt the club to be doing more for their fans, and if it's one night every 3 months, I think that's okay, right? Like, we're not we're not part of the season where we're playing every 3 days. We have time to do these things now. But I just think that if we had them regularly, that the questions may well be very, very similar, or almost a bit too pertinent, that we wouldn't want to share that information. The questions I saw were about like naming rights for the stadium. Well, that may well be pertinent in 3 months' time, but we're not going to be asking Ange about why he picked these players, and that's probably weirdly the stuff that the fans actually do want to know. They want to feel a bit more involved in the actual decision making, or involved is the wrong word, but it's clearly a good thing. I haven't watched all 90 minutes of it, if I'm honest. I watched the first half an hour. I did see that some people have said that the first hour was planned and the last 30 minutes was questions from the floor, which again, it isn't what many fans would have liked. But as Jack said, I mean, you're not going to put yourself up there for an hour and a half of questions you don't want to answer. It's not going to be a situation like you're going on. I don't know who the main political interviewer in the UK is, but that kind of thing. It's going to be very stage managed. Of course it is. But the point is that players and the management are more available to the fans. That we are not that we're more a football club and less a business, which I think for a lot of fans is super important.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it was Ange, Son, and Levy. We've seen lots of quotes out there today. How did you feel Levy came out of it, Jack? I mean, we've got some of the quotes here. Let's get this one up first. So obviously, we want the fans to have the connection with the players and the staff to have the connection with the players. You can feel it throughout the club. We're together again. We've got a short-winded and a long-winded version of that. How do you think Levy came out of that last night, Jack? Did you believe what he was saying? Did you feel at any point through anything else he said that he's obviously? I think he sort of said that mistakes have been made, but do you think there's a realization there that he hasn't made the correct decisions the past sort of like 5-6 years?
I think with Levy, the thing with Levy, like anyone who's been in charge of any organization or been in political office even for that long, there's no one who's going to change their mind about any. There's no way he's going to come out and do anything that's going to change anyone from a supporter to or someone who is firm Levy out. There's nothing he could do to change their mind. I mean, there's too many things that have happened. There's too much distrust. There's too many bad feelings. I think the fact that he is willing to sit out there is still a good thing, despite that. I think the things that he said, for those people who are not perpetually biased against him, I think the admission that clearly the managerial appointments of Mourinho and Conte were mistakes, I think is a good thing. I mean, you can say they weren't mistakes. It's just that he didn't give them the tools to win. He hired win now managers and didn't back them. And we're not going to, I don't think the three of us need to go down that course. But I think the fact that he's willing to say, yep, I shouldn't have appointed those managers. And I made a mistake and I tried to right things with Ange. And I think he's lucky, of course, that the season started off so strongly, because you can imagine if we had 5 points from the first 5 games, this would have been taken a little bit differently by a broad section of the fan base. So he got a little lucky, I think, with Ange and the team starting off so well. But I think he didn't change anyone's minds. He didn't make any huge errors from what I've read. I like you, IJ, I have not had time, nor even if I had the time, the idea that I was going to watch 90 minutes, that is highly unlikely. If they would get it into a podcast where I could put it on 1.4 speed and listen to it while I walk the dog, I think maybe I would listen to it like I do with a lot of podcasts. But at regular speed, there's probably no way I'm going to sit or even listen to it. But I think overall, I think he didn't make any huge mistakes. It's just he's not going to change anyone's mind about him at all, and nor would I expect it to be that way.
And to look at the comments we have right now, Dave is right. I mean, we all know how Davo feels about Levy, but that is completely true. I'm pretty certain it was organised in the international break. You know, they gave people a couple of weeks' notice. We've had one game since the international break, which we won. But, again, maybe somewhat luckily, but we got the 3 points. The feel-good factor is there, and it would have been there even had we lost, to be fair, because I think everyone feels that we have a new start with Ange, and that he is the face of the club right now. And I think my favourite part from what I did see was at the beginning, the presenter asked Daniel Levy, "Hey, look, it's been 6 years since we did this," which says enough, frankly.
Yeah.
Right, we're talking two football grounds ago. Wembley
wasn't good,
but it was just kind of what's happened, and it's almost as if Levy wasn't expecting that first question, which was insane, because they asked him, "Well, what's happened in the last 6 years?" And Levy went through this kind of you could see his eyes, the brain was like, "What am I going to say?" "Oh yeah, we've opened the stadium. That's the one thing I did." Right, I mean, Levy's that's his pet project, right? So that's clearly the thing that he's going to remember. And then, the pandemic happened because we couldn't have revenue. So that was the second thing that came on his mind. And then he talked about the Champions League final, which we didn't win, which was actually before the pandemic. So there was clear that it wasn't even. Maybe he didn't think about it this much, and maybe I'm being overly critical, but it was just kind of he didn't know what to say because there hasn't been that much good to talk about in the last 6 years. And so then finally he went, "Oh, and we got Ange, and then suddenly there was this big round of applause, and Levy was like, oh, I said something good. Like, and you could see that it was not as if the pressure was on him, but he recognizes, as he should do, that Ange is the reason there is this feel-good factor, and Ange needs to be front row center. And Levy's job, which to be fair, a lot of people have wanted from him, is to just slink back, is to become that Homer Simpson meme and just go back into the bushes so that we can focus on the football, which is Ange's job. It's not Levy's job. So I'm excited that's probably what's going to happen. It's just it was awkward to watch him struggle at a question that you'd imagine he would have known was coming.
Would have thought it was scripted. That answer should have been like he should have had that down pat. You would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, again,
it is odd.
But I just remember like watching it. It's the first 5 minutes of the video, and it was like, oh, like just talk about Ange. Let's just talk about Ange. Forget the last 6 years. I don't blame him. I mean, none of us really want to remember the last 6 years, but still, it was just this awkward. Like, no, I'm here because I own the club, right? I mean, I'm part owner of the club. But actually, talk to the talent. Talk to the captains. Talk to the managers. I'm the suit, right? I mean, that's who he is.
But I mean, in a way, obviously, we're playing with fire here, aren't we? On this show at the minute, doing a little session on Levy because it could go either way with people in the comments, and don't really want to go down that route because I can't be bothered to talk about the old Levy out, Enoch out shit. But like, obviously, you saying that HG, that is exactly who you want talking, isn't it? Like you said, once you get into the things Ange has been said last night, and the thing he's perfect at that, isn't he? And it's just basically as if to showcase off, look what I've done. I've got this guy in now, and he's brilliant. And then Ange just goes off and takes all the pressure off Levy. I mean, didn't he even say he made it difficult? He was happy with the transfer window and all that type of stuff. But Ange has just got this, like you say, you got Levy there last night, so people will bring his comments up. But you can see even more now, can't you, that Ange is the figurehead of this club, isn't he? He's driving this club on now. He's been put in that position to be like our Klopp stroke Guardiola, and that's where we're heading.
I mean, this is it. That's what we want. Like if you look at Manchester City, like we might know the names of the people behind the scenes, but that's where they stay, right?
Yeah.
We might know the names of the Liverpool Brains Trust. We know them a bit more now because they haven't been very good recently. They've had to change them up a bit. But generally speaking, it's the manager that is the face of the club. And for various reasons, Levy has been up there, right? He's made bad decisions when appointing managers. He's focused clearly on the things he's good at, which, again, that's what we want. But it's like no chairman, no chairman worthy of the name actually wants to be front row center. You would hope a good chairman says, you know what, like I pay people to do this. Like Todd Bowley doesn't give too many public announcements for Chelsea. He pays people to take care of that. Like obviously he's the face of the failure because he's had to make lots of changes, but he's not giving interviews every week. He's not trying to win the fan base over. That's the job of Pochettino for Chelsea. That's the job of Ange for Spurs. So it's in a perfect world, we will have a situation where these fan forums will have nothing to do with Levy, right? Because we'll all be focused on the football, and what else happens afterwards is not irrelevant. I mean, it is useful to know where the revenue's coming from and like how the club is growing, but we only care about that if that money can then be used to finance the team, to help us be better on the pitch. Like that's why we pay the money to go and watch the football. We don't like the stadium is lovely, but no one goes to look at the stadium. They go to watch the football, right? It's nice to be in a great stadium, and it's nice to have creature comforts and have all these things that Spurs provide. But again, that's not why you go. I'm not paying 60 quid to look at a building. So
it shouldn't be.
No. Well, yeah, that's another question.
I think there are people out there who genuinely like to turn around and go, I watch football in the best stadium in the world, though. And you're just like, mate, I'd go and watch Spurs if they played down the... Yeah, I bet there are, mate. I guarantee you there are. But, I mean, this is like all that. I'm not into all that crap and all the stuff behind the scenes. I like the stuff on the pitch. But this is the type of shit I'm talking about, Jack. Big Ange, he wouldn't have joined if he wouldn't have got to do what he wanted. And I actually do, and I do believe that. I don't think that's Levy saying to him, "You need to say this type of thing." I don't think he speaks for anyone else. I think he genuinely says, there's no faffing about with him. He genuinely says what he means. That is what we want to hear, isn't it, Jack? For all the other guff that goes on with that Levy's been saying or whatever, this is the type of stuff we want to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's no question that it's a rare breed that can be very, very brilliant with his players and set them up to succeed, have a tactical system that is enjoyable to watch, and have the communication skills to connect with a fan base. That is not just every manager out there. We know that there are a select few of them, and it's clear because if you listen to every single fan base that he's been a part of, they all say the same thing. They loved him when he was there. They were sorry to see him go. And this is the type of thing and he's also the type of manager I think that will keep a lot of the problems behind the scenes. He's not gonna air the dirty laundry. If he's not getting his way, he may just eventually not be with the club anymore, but it's not going to become this big public thing. Is that a message? Is that a shot to Levy? We're not going to be dealing with what we just did with, again, Conte and Mourinho are clearly brilliant, successful managers. No one can argue with it. But in terms of the type of manager that I want the manager who communicates, who excites, who brings passion, but has also had that rare ability to feel genuine, that he's actually being honest with you. He's not giving you a line of crap, right? He is communicating in a way that seems genuine and honest, but yet he's also not going to run people over. He's not going to throw people under the bus. It's a rare skill, and we are fortunate to have someone who can communicate like that. And as HG was saying, you can do all the fan forms you want, and you could pretty much eventually, as Levy, just slowly slip further and further as the bushes close, Homer style, right? So that you just kind of slip right out of there. And maybe the next time there's a fan forum, it's Scott Munn, because no one's coming to see Levy. No one, as I said earlier, no one's changing their mind about him. No one, I know what I think about him, and it's unlikely that he's going to do anything to change my mind about it. So I think it's the right strategy, and I'm glad that they put that Robert Willem, and I'm glad they're putting up the women's team on the side too. I think that's a really good sign. So I think overall it was the right thing to do, but I don't know that I got a lot out of what Levy had to say. Quite frankly, no. That's not why I would have been there.
Any old idiot could have told you that, like where he's saying we brought in 2 win now managers and it never quite worked. You're like, no shit, mate. I don't. Do you know what I mean? It's just like.
I will say this: like I've seen I've seen a few comments on Twitter from the people that are a Levy out, and of course. They stand behind their position too. I mean, you would, right? And they're looking at what Levy's saying, and Levy did say, "Look, obviously we made mistakes," and then becomes the excuse of like, "Well, but I did these things because that's what the fans wanted." And let's be fair, he's right. When Pochettino left, I remember doing an emergency pod, and we all knew Mourinho was available. And he seemed like the logical choice. And it felt like Spurs were at that stage where we were a club that he would say yes to, which we hadn't been before. And so, he's not wrong to say that the fans wanted these things. In the summer of 21, when we met with Nuno, we all sat here and thought Conte is the best man available for this job. He's the one with the track record. So I understand that, yes, he's saying, yes, we made mistakes, but I did this because of the fans. I mean, that's not a great thing to say, but it's also true that the fans did want it, right? He's not gaslighting and making things up. Lots of fans really wanted Conte. Lots of fans wanted Mourinho. Lots of fans wanted them sacked as well when they realised it wasn't going to. Okay, Jack is one of the ones that didn't. I understand that, but it's still. I get why you don't trust Levy, because Levy has form for saying things in a way that will make you believe one thing when something else is intended. And when you look at it, you read it again, you think, oh, okay, yeah, he could be saying both of those things. But he's happy for people to believe the positive version, right? Like when he talked about the stadium being built and it wouldn't affect transfers, well, it is right. It didn't. We were still buying what we sold. Like there was no new money coming into it. But everyone thought, great, we'll still be buying. And it's true, we did. But it was still based on the idea of, if we're going to sell a player like Walker, then we have money to spend. If we can get rid of these squad players that aren't playing, then we'll have money to spend. But at no point while the stadium was being built was it, we're going to throw in an extra 30, 50 million, whatever they could have done at that point. So what they were quite happy for us to think things when deep down they knew they weren't true. And so I understand why people are a bit skeptical of Levy. You would be. But I just hope that people focus on the fact that we're winning games, and that is all that really any of us should care about. Like, we haven't spoken about Levy for the last 6 weeks, and there's a reason for that. And it's because Spurs look like they're on a good path. It looks like already we are the best of the rest, maybe us and Brighton, right? You've got the big three, I think, which are Liverpool, City and Arsenal. And after that, it could be anyone.
It's all open.
It's all open. Yeah. And so, like, that's not a bad position to be in, considering, 3-4 months ago, we had hope, but there was nothing to base it on, right? And suddenly, we've got something to base it on. We are seeing. I don't want to talk about Spurs too much, but it's a good thing to have Ange in charge.
Yeah, and that's why I'm leading on to this comment, HG and Jack. I know we've gone. It seems like we're going over old ground, because literally, we're coming on and just like waxing lyrical about Ange, but he is. I mean, like, was it the under-23s that beat Colchester in that Johnson's Paint Trophy last night?
Yeah, under 21s, I think. Yeah,
under 21s, yeah. But it was a strong, like, that competition. We've never really put out. Do you know what I mean? Is this all part of what Ange is doing? Do you think? Do you know what I mean? We're putting out a strong team in that, so we can try these younger players against physical sort of like first teams, even lower in men's football, even lower down the league. Do you think that's all part of a plan, or do you think we've just got a good crop at the minute of younger players, or do you think there is literally Ange has got a plan in this, and I want these players playing in those types of games so I can see what they're about? Do you think that's do you think there's any coincidence there?
I'll jump in and because you may have more insight, HG, but from my high level, one of the things that's always been perplexing and is such a reason why the appointments from Mourinho and Conte were so short-sighted. I don't understand why he did it, and we can all criticize that he did it, and he's admitted he's a mistake and whatever. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. But that's as a football club, you should have an identity how you play, and that identity should be from the youth all the way up through the first team squad. You should all have a playing identity, because as the players come through the academy and they're being groomed for the first team, and if they're going to train with the first team, they should all be playing some sort of similar system. And so the academy, as I understand, has always been a front foot type of playing style. It's part of the DNA of the club. And then we bring in managers who don't play that at all. So it's no shock that when the kids from the academy are coming into training or when they're needed, they're not able to adapt. I mean, Oliver Skipp played a different type of football growing up, as I understand it, than what he was brought in to do with Mourinho. And so that could have affected his development, right? I mean, Mourinho and with Conte. And so the fact is, I think what's really happened is that we've removed the style of play and the philosophy of managers who play a completely different brand of football, and brought in somebody who actually mirrors more what the club has done at the youth level for years, and what we used to do long before probably I was even a fan. So I think that's really what's going on. And to your point, it does seem like we have some really talented players in the academy right now that they we've attracted. I mean, we signed people out of the Chelsea academy, right? At least on 1 or 2 occasions. So I think that we have something going on at the academy level, but really what has happened is Ange has brought the first team back to where we really should have been all along. And this odyssey with win now because we have Harry Kane in the club is gone. And it's too bad it didn't bring a trophy, I think, but we're at least back to think where we should be. And whether Levy gets credit or blame for that, I'm not really interested in that discussion, at least not in this environment.
HG, last word on this on the forum in this about Ange pulling the strings now, and from everything we're getting, what's your take on it?
I think the biggest thing with the under-21s right now is that we have some serious talent. I mean, that's clear. Like, it's not just people that we've signed, like Lancashire and Soon Bell from Chelsea.
Phillips.
And Phillips. It's players like Dorrington that have been at the club since they were 10 years old. And it's players like, the Santiago kid. Like, obviously I'm assuming he wasn't born in England. I don't know if he was, but, just with the name, I'm guessing. but like it feels like they have an identity and they have a set way of playing. And there are some players that have missed out, who are maybe now 20 years old, 21 years old, and they're not going to get their chance because a lot of these under 21s are 18 and 19. They are young. They could play with each other for a couple of years. They can go out on loan. And like I think the thing we have to remember is that players like Donnelly and Lancashire, like we all want them to be first team players for Spurs. Obviously, there's a massive benefit to have homegrown players that you actually want to use, and they're not just there to make up numbers in the squad. But Ange is the only one who's going to recognise if they're good enough to be that right now. And he said, I think in previous interviews, that like the only way you're going to find out is if by trying, right? You can't, like, sending them off to League One for a season doesn't necessarily help you understand if they're going to be good enough for what you need right now. It can help them develop, but at some point you have to say, right, maybe it's the end of the season and there are some dead rubber games or whatever it ends up being, but you make those decisions. And it does appear that Ange is going to be the one to say, no, I need to find out what I have next season. And if I have some people who are in the academy that I can use, that I want to have around, then I won't need to go out and spend 50 million on Brennan Johnson, or I won't need to go out and spend a load of money on a centre back. If he thinks that Phillips and Dorrington and Charlie Sayers are good enough for that first team squad, then maybe that extra centre back that we all think we're going to need, maybe we won't. Maybe Ange won't need to go and do that. It's just nice to have a manager that watches those games and maybe even goes to the games if he can, and clearly gets involved in their training, because it's not just about the first team results for him.
Well, no, it's a bigger picture, isn't it? That's what we've been saying. Now, obviously, we're obliged to put this up because it's a super chat from Dave. So before we move on, Jack, how did your team get on, mate? Tell Dave.
Yeah,
like,
so just
on and on in the comments.
Yeah, just for the background. So we got talking about my team, and I play center back, and Dave asked me if I was more a Romero or Van de Ven. I said I'm more a Dawson, and so that's the backstory here. So we were playing the state champion. It was also one of the better teams, as I said, on the East Coast here, and we got down 3-0 on 2 pens and an own goal. And the one pen was legitimate, the other one was not. But we pulled it back to 3-2, but ran out of time. So unfortunately, we lost we lost 3-2.
There you go, Dave. Anyway, well done, Jack. It's the taking part that counts, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Say. That's right.
But
in fact, we played that team twice this season, and they've scored 4 penalties and 2 own goals.
Wow.
So we're just handing it to them left and right, and I'm responsible for none of the own goals and none of the pens, just saying outright.
That's it, mate. That's it. No Iron team.
How very Antonio Conte of you.
Yes, yeah. I thought so. Thank you very much.
But slightly not great news today. Well, I don't think it is. Perisic, ACL injury. I think that obviously players like himself and Højbjerg, who have been quite maligned, I think have actually shown in the last few weeks that they are really good squad players for us. So, HG, how do you feel about that? Because I'm a little bit gutted, to be fair.
Yeah, man, it's certainly not good. I mean, the guy's come on in almost every game, I think, so far this season. He started the cup game. He crossed for the Richarlison header at the weekend.
Yeah.
I think it was his pass that was the most vital one for the second goal, where he played it into Richarlison's path.
Mm-hmm.
You don't play 14 years of top-level football in Germany, Italy, and England without being a very good player, and so we're going to miss him. There is obviously a hope that, well, he's 34, almost 35, and he's not the future of Spurs, and so it does give an opportunity for other people, but those other people right now aren't fit. So it's definitely awful news, although I can't help but wonder, when it says a non-contact injury, what are we talking? Like he kicked the door in disgust because he lost a game of Uno? Like what is this? What is this non-contact injury? Like, we all assume he just twisted funny, I know, in a weight room, or like did he slip over on a crisp wrapper? Like, I kind of want to know how it happened. It sounds awful,
Yeah.
but
It was wet today.
It's not good for Spurs. It's not good.
No, Jack, he's obviously made quite a few contributions, being used in the role he's being used in. And there's obviously a lot of value because we all thought he could go. So there's quite a bit of value in keeping him around. But yeah, it's a bit of a sickener, isn't it? Because, like when I'm looking at it, we've all got our own opinions on Richarlison. But when you go into a game, when you play Richarlison, Perisic is the type of guy that can supply the ammunition to make Richarlison, in my opinion, serviceable. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's got all. I think that is the attribute he's got, Richarlison. Winning headers and getting on the end of crosses like that. And Perisic is probably, arguably, the best player we've got to supply those. Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I think everyone is on the same page. And by the way, between my business partner and I, we have 4 ACLs done in our lives, and 2 of them are non-contact. So it's very possible. But I mean, it is unfortunate because right now we have a set of wingers, at least so far what we've seen, who like to invert or want to cut in, right, and to play the ball. And Perisic is one of the players who could legitimately, because he's 2-footed, could easily go down the wing on the outside and cross back, which is exactly what a lot of the AND system is built around, and deliver a ball with great accuracy, both on free kicks and corners, as well as from open plays. So there's no way around it. This is a big loss because it's also a huge amount of experience. To HG's point, it's you're 75 in. You need someone who can continue to press, keep the ball forward, be progressive, but has the experience and knowledge to help manage a game. So there's no way around it. It's a big loss. It clearly does open up playing time for Brian Hill and HG's secret crush, which is Ryan Sessegnon, and when he's fit, if he's ever fit again.
He's ever fit, mate.
So it does. We still have 6 forwards when Brian is fit to play in the 3 positions. So it's not like, and we only have 7 games to the window, or 8 games, or whatever it is, to the January window. So it's not the end of the world, but it certainly is not going to help us get results by not having him available. There's no way to spin it any other way.
Which squad player benefits from this, HG? Who's going to get those minutes? Who would you like to see get those minutes?
Well, I think when he's fit, Brian Hill will get those minutes. I think he's the logical choice. He plays that position. If he's not fit, and Sessegnon clearly isn't fit, because at least, and you see Brian Hill in the weight room, like you see those pictures, so he's around. I haven't seen Sessegnon for months. But yeah, if you're looking past that and you're looking at the academy, then probably the Santiago kid, because he plays out there too, and he goes both ways. Like he likes to cut in and shoot, but so that there's a chance that he may well be on the bench for the North London Derby. But I just, it's a rough one, because Perisic, generally speaking, is likely going to be your first option, no matter what the game is. Whether you want to be defensive, when you want to be attacking, Perisic has that ability to. I think Richarlison's goals this season both were set up by Perisic, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember the one at Liverpool, but it was a cross from deep. May well have been Perisic. I don't remember the headers against Marseille, but it may well have been Perisic, because that's where he scores his goals.
That's a good question.
And so you're right. Like, if we don't have someone who can provide those crosses, and like I think Solomon can to an extent, but it's not necessarily his natural game. He wants to be the one to cut in and score. So it's not good, right? I'm trying to be hopeful and say that we've got people that can play those positions, and we do, right? The left winger is probably the spot that we are most set for, because when Brian and Sessegnon are fit, that's their role in Ange's team. They're not going to play anywhere else. No, but I'm saying that even if, right, like if you're looking at someone with Premier League experience, which Sess has, and you want to put him in a position where the things he is good at, he can do.
Right.
Well, left wing in Ange is basically it, right? You can't play anywhere else. So it's not as if we're struggling for numbers. It's not as if, if we lost Richarlison, then you're looking at Son as your main striker, and then you're in trouble, right? As left wingers, we don't have that issue in our squad. So as sucky as it is,
it's just the quality that he puts the ball in with, isn't it? That's because like obviously there's not going to be. I can't see many games where he would start, but he's that option when you're playing against a team that are sitting back and doing what Sheffield United did, and you just need someone to make a yard and put a good ball in the box for someone to get on the end of it. I've seen, even though Kulusevski played well at the weekend, he doesn't even have that ability as much from the right, does he? Like his balls, not his balls, the balls he puts in, when he tends to put them in from the right.
I mean, to be fair, Gibbo, it's how you finish that sentence.
I'm glad you clarified.
Just so everybody knows, I'm not talking about his testicles, but like when he whips a ball in, Kulusevski, it tends to go out for a goal kick, doesn't it? He hasn't got that. He hasn't got that bend, that whip, and he doesn't put it right on the money, which is what Perisic tends to do quite a lot. So that's what we're going to miss. Like
Kulusevski has one cross, and Perisic, to be fair, when he cuts in on his right foot, has one cross. It tends to go to the far post. So, like with the camera angle at Spurs, you often see Kulusevski, especially when we're attacking the home end, right? You see the ball leave his foot, and you know where it's going. And it might be, a foot wide of the post. Like it's never going to be one of those that curls in, but it's always a bit too close to the keeper. But you start to think at the teammates, like, we know he's going to do this. Surely he's going to want to do this because he understands, like we've seen it plenty of times in football, that if you get that cross right, then the person coming on the far post usually has a free header or you actually can get on the ball. So the crossing itself is not awful, but if the runners aren't making that run, then they will look awful all the time, right? Because it does depend on someone understanding what Kulusevski does, and he doesn't vary things up that much. Like if the cross comes in, it goes to the far post almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, like on Saturday, I started to say a couple of times, but I was just getting frustrated, and I was like, just too predictable, Kulusevski, with what he's doing. Obviously, then he dropped a bit deeper. He's in a different position then and scores the goals. But I mean, so Jack, last word on it. Big miss Perisic from the squad. They've been saying on the socials today that he's planning to get back before the end of the season. When I first heard about it, I thought that was it. We'd never see him play for Spurs again. But he seems like he's determined to come back, doesn't he? And play a few games to help us at the end of the season and maybe play in the Euros for Croatia. So
I mean, we'll see how fast he recovers. Yeah, I mean, it's having recovered from 2, and I'm no world-class athlete, clearly. It's not an easy thing to do as you get older, so that you have to worry a little bit about how fast you come back. But I mean, it's certainly not without. The guy was amazingly fit. I mean, he's been really injury-free. It's kind of of all the people you thought could go down, he didn't seem like a brittle person. And that's one of the things that I noticed in the comments of people saying, Brian is a blows over in a strong wind, and Perisic is a huge body, and that's going to be a big presence physically that we miss. But it could open the door for us. If Ange is not afraid to play youth, it could open a door for a Santiago. It could open. I don't know if Sunset Bell can play on the left. I don't watch youth football, but I mean, we've got some decent sized kids down at the youth level, and maybe they might get a chance. Particularly if Brian gets blown off the ball and training all the time, Ange is like, all right, well, I can't trust you. Let me bring somebody in who's a bit more of a physical presence. And I think Santiago is a decent sized guy from what I can tell. So, again, not having stood next to him. So yeah, I think it'd be nice to see him towards the end of the season, thinking we're still playing for something important, and have him come back and be available for the last month and a half. That'd be fantastic.
I think what it means more than anything is that, let's face it, if we do need to make a sub at some point and change things up down the left, we're more likely to see Sonny go out there. If Sonny starts as a centre forward, we're more likely to see Sonny go out there and Richarlison become the centre forward than we are to see Brendan Johnson play down the left, maybe, than we are to see Santiago down the left. Like that's not a negative on Santiago. It's just I think a statement of fact that Ange will probably move around the experienced players a bit more. Like we're not at the stage where Santiago is going to be the first choice to come on.
No.
But I think that there's easily a chance that he could be on the bench even this Sunday, genuinely.
Right.
Because we will need maybe those options. He might be one of the subs who never plays, but he'll be named. I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely possible.
And January is not far away, so if we really feel the need, we could probably find a solution if we needed to.
And one thing you can guarantee is I don't think Ange will. It's done. That'll be done. We haven't got him. He's injured. No point dwelling on it. We will move on and we will do what we need to for the team to make us tick, to make us successful. And that's what he'll do. He won't moan and groan about it, which is great, which is what the other managers used to do. But I think now maybe it's getting time. We're 40 minutes in. I think, what everyone's tuned in for. Massive game at the weekend. First North London derby of the season away. First of all, like we've said, we don't want to do a big preview because that's what the Friday guys will do. We don't want to steal their thunder. But obviously, massive game, HG, over the years. Got any favourite memories from North London derbies over the years? Obviously, there's plenty of bad ones.
I think this is it. It's been 30 years since I started watching them, and there haven't been too many victories. But the first one I ever went to, we won. And that was the first one of the Premier League in 92. It was a 1-0 home win. Obviously, we all remember the famous victory at the Emirates because, again, it's only happened once in the league.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, my memory of Arsenal games are that they're tight. All the draws that we've had in the last 10 years at their place, they were tight games. In many of them, we were 1-0 up and couldn't hold on. So, yes, I realised that last season was a bit of a nightmare. But I do feel that certainly this year, as good as we are, the pressure is on them. They're the ones that want to continue with another title bid. We are the ones that, if we lose, everyone will say, well, now we know how good Spurs are, which would be a lie, really, because you wouldn't really know. But that's what they'll say. They'll use it as a stick to beat Spurs, but I don't think it will change much about us. So it's quite nice to not be as nervous as I might normally be, especially when I know deep down we're much better than we've been for a number of seasons.
Oh, man. I mean, Jack, last season I was on the preview show on the Friday before we played at the Emirates, and I fancied us. I said the same as HG. I don't think there's any pressure on us. I think we'll go out there and play our game. And after 60 minutes, Conte was waving the white flag. Because, do you know what I mean? So I don't want to get into that. But memories from North London derbies for you? Can you remember the first one?
Yeah,
you watched or...
Yeah, so I think my earliest memory, without question, is, and I can't go back very far, as you guys could imagine, is the 2010 home and the Rose goal. I mean, I think that's definitely the thing that kind of jumps to mind. My favorite memory was I think it probably was my first North London derby at the North London Spurs bar that we adopted, and that was 2015, and that's the face mask. I think that's the face mask goal, right? So that one is a huge memory, just because we had a huge crowd, and it was one of our first experiences with that many Spurs fans here in the States and that sort of stuff. The closest I got to an actual London derby was the draw at Wembley. I was at a bar outside the stadium. I was visiting with my daughter. I was there, and I took the train by myself. My son and wife hadn't come over. I went over early for a reason, and so I was there, and I didn't have a ticket, but I wanted to get as close to it as I possibly could. And it was awesome. The train ride out was fantastic, and the atmosphere around the stadium, even though this wasn't our real home, it was still great. And I was expecting to meet I knew a guy in London I connected with online. I thought I was going to go to a bar where there's a ton of people. So the stadium was great. Everyone's singing and doing all the chants. And I go to this bar, and there's like 4 people in it. And I'm watching basically by myself, but still, the Hugo save on Aubameyang is just, big. I mean, there was 4 of us, but we, cheering loudly and that sort of stuff. And then, of course, when the game finished, when the match is out, everyone emptied, that place filled up, and that was a good memory. So it's limited, it's short supply of memories for me, but those are the ones that stand out.
I was in Krakow on that game. And that 1-1, I can remember, because I was in a packed bar, but I think I was probably the only one who cheered when Aubameyang missed the penalty. But I mean, my memory is always of us beating them in the semi-final of the FA Cup. That's all. I think that's probably the first time. So 91, I was born in 78. So I think that is the first time I realised how big a game Tottenham Arsenal was. So I think that's the one that always sticks in my head. But Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Like I've shared this on previous pods, so if anyone's heard this before, I'm sorry. But that week of the 91 semi-final, I went with my football club on a tour of the Arsenal, and so I went round Highbury, and I'm the same age as you, so I'm like 13 years old. I've got my Spurs top on. I didn't care because again, at that point, you're right. I didn't really know that it was that big because the Premier League hadn't started. You couldn't watch football on TV at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very much like, okay, it's a big game. Spurs hate Arsenal. I knew that. But I'd never been to a North London derby at that point. So again, I didn't really know. But I always remember going into the old Highbury Stadium and they had a training pitch kind of under one of the stands. And at that point, the old Man United goalie, Jim Leighton, was on loan at Arsenal. And I remember standing there watching Jim Leighton train thinking, okay, this is these are professional footballers. This was a big deal. But I remember Pat Rice didn't like the fact that I was wearing that Spurs top around Arsenal. But again, for him, it was a big deal. And for me, I was like, yeah, I'm a Spurs fan, so I'm going to wear my Spurs top. What of it? So that week will always be fun because I wish that I'd gone the Tuesday after the game rather than the Tuesday before.
Yeah.
But still, it's for a 13-year-old kid, that was a pretty good memory.
I mean, at the Emirates, what have we won there, HG? Twice, once in the league. Didn't we? We won in the League Cup, didn't we? The Dele Alli sort of death chip. But I mean, when you're looking for like your favourite moments, beating them 5-1. Jack, can you remember us beating them 5-1 at the Lane in the semi-final of the League Cup?
Unfortunately, not.
Is that just a bit before your time?
I mean, I remember it only because I can access it now.
Yeah.
But no, I have no real memory of that at all.
I mean, I would say that the worst things about those games is that this was at a time when Arsenal didn't take the League Cup seriously at all. So we're desperate to win a trophy. We're desperate to be doing something. And Arsenal were playing, let's face it, a beating, right? And so you had that nervousness of being like, and I think we played them 2 years in a row in the semi-final as well.
Yeah.
So the first year we didn't go through. And the second year we had the 5-1 and we did. And we go on to, I think we maybe must have won it that year. But it was
2008.
At that point, it was very much like Spurs are vastly inferior to Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And our best team might struggle against their squad players, right? And so going into any game right now, we know that our A game matches up with theirs. And I feel like for a lot of fans, we've had issues about players not really getting it, not really showing up, not really understanding that it's a massive game, because we tend to just play it as if it's a normal game, and it's not a normal game. And if you give Arsenal, especially away from home, if you give them a platform to play on the ball, they will beat you. That most teams will lose to Arsenal if you let them play. So whatever press that we've seen so far this season, to me, has to be stronger. Like I would hope that Ange is thinking, I've got 5 subs to use. I want to use some of them after an hour. You guys go out and run your socks off for an hour. Like if Kulusevski starts and he knows that Johnson's going to come on at 60 minutes, brilliant. Like to have that kind of plan in mind rather than just say the game is afoot and off we go. So that's my big thing with the North London Derby is I want to see Spurs actually recognise that it isn't just another league game, that it is a massively important game. Because if we get something from it, it means a lot. It will mean a lot to the players, it will mean a lot to the fans, and it will show that, hopefully, I think we are the best of the rest right now.
Just before we go on to like the next section where we'll give our opinions on how we think it will go. Obviously, I've been a Spurs fan as long as I can remember. I was a season ticket holder for years until I decided to get married and have kids, which put the kibosh on that. But what if you got the I don't live in that where it's the North London Derby is like I ain't got to see loads of Arsenal fans when I go to work the next day, and when you live in that, it's really tough. Personally, I don't want to lose to Arsenal. I want to beat them. I don't like them. I really don't. But I would rather, if I had to win either of them, I want to beat Liverpool, mate, the week after. I cannot stick them. I can't stick their fans, and I can't stand Clippity Klopp, even though he's a really good manager. Out the two, HG.
But that's because you have more Liverpool fans where you live.
That's
right?
it. Yeah, that's for me. I can't stick them. What about you, Jack? I suppose you go on, HG, carry on.
I'm just going to say that, like, I can only really remember in my life having one friend who was an Arsenal fan who I thought was a decent person. Right? I mean, that might seem harsh, but genuinely speaking, they all seem to be knobheads. And so, like, I mean, I've said, like, my grandparents, my dad's parents were Arsenal. My dad was born in Islington. Like, strictly speaking, if it goes the way it should have, I should be Arsenal. But my uncle and my dad, we don't know. We like Spurs more. And so I remember having conversations with my grandfather. My stepfather was a gooner, but my stepfather was a prick. So that made sense to me. And I know my mum's watching, so she'll be glad I said that. The thing is, I just like living here, I'll get a bit of stick from people at school because the kids know I'm a Spurs fan. They're not really Arsenal, but they'll know if we lose, I'm gonna feel it. But it's more about I want Spurs to win every game. That's the main thing. And if we beat Arsenal, great. Liverpool, I like Klopp. I mean, I hated Rodgers, and when Rodgers was their manager, I hated Liverpool. Now I don't mind Liverpool as much because I do like Klopp. But again, my experiences with him are pre-Premier League, right? Like I knew him when he was a pundit on German TV in World Cups. So I got to know him before he went to Liverpool, before he became the person that that Gibbo probably dislikes because he represents the team he dislikes. But I don't know. I want us to basically just play. It sounds very like a teacher, but if we play our best, we might win, we might lose. But like if we actually give a good account of ourselves, that will matter. Performances do matter. And obviously, I don't want us to play well and lose 3-1. But it would mean something that we've gone there and we've gone toe to toe with them, and we haven't just retreated and hoped to play on the counter. That we want the ball, and we want to stop Arsenal having the ball. Because from the Arsenal that I've seen so far this season, they haven't been as good in the early games as they were last year. So if you have the ball, you can hurt them, right? Because they're not good enough to do anything. They're used to having the ball now. So I hope that whenever it is our midfield four, if it's the inverted fullbacks and the attacking midfielders and Bissouma, our midfield five should outnumber whoever they have. It's going to be a very interesting battle to see who comes out on top.
So, I agree. I think we will go there. Ange isn't going to change his tactic. He might change subtle little things, but we will go there to try and play our football to win the game the way we want to. So, Jack, like I said, the big preview's on Friday night. Don't want to steal their thunder. How do you see this game going against Arsenal on Sunday?
Yeah, obviously, I think that any Spurs fan would expect that I could see you getting completely pantsed because you're playing open football, trying to press high with a high line against a team who is very talented, can move the ball, and can hurt you because they have scorers across the front line as well as Odegaard coming up late through the middle, and his late runs at the top of the box are problematic for any team as anyone can see. So this is a game that you really could get ugly if you concede early goals in the way that PSV did tonight. Not that we're anywhere close to PSV, but I mean, again, you can lose badly at the Emirates. They play as HE said, they haven't played as well, and I don't know if this is the reason, but one of the things that I've noticed is they build up differently. Rice is a completely different player than how they build up. They used to build up kind of like we do now with the center backs moving up the field. Rice likes to sit between the center backs and be a deep line playmaker more than having a midfielder in that box, receiving the ball from the back line, turning and go upfield. They build up much differently, and I don't know exactly how Ange is going to set up to pressure and counter that. But I expect this to be. I hope that it expects to be very tight. I do think that the way we can get at them is at left back. We had this debate in our WhatsApp group about whether we would play Porro or Emerson. And the question is what are you more concerned about? Martinelli coming down the side against Porro, or Porro going up against Zinchenko on the left, if that's who they decide to play, who started tonight. And they got a nice rotation. Most of the big players coming out at the 60-minute mark, so they're going to be again nice and fresh. So that's going to be the question for me. I hope he doesn't change too much and we stay attacking and we go at them, because I'd rather take the game to him. Like H said, let's get the ball. It's not a complicated equation that if you have the ball, the other team can't score. So we really should be holding on to as much as possible. And I think a Poro gives you a better chance to hurt them than an Emerson. So I hope we go with the same attacking lineup and play the same way. And as I said, what happens, what happens. If you lose a game, fine, but don't retreat, don't play safe, and I don't expect us to.
HG, Poro, Emerson, can you see any other changes, or do you think we go with how we've been playing?
I think we'll go with how we've been playing. I mean, like Emerson scored in the first game of the season, got dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, he didn't play badly, but Spurs, I think Ange decided we are better off having an extra attacking player, an extra player that And look, I think Poro was basically anonymous against Sheffield United. I mean, I barely saw him at any stage of the game. He wasn't producing crosses. He wasn't involved in the attacking third. He wasn't defending because we didn't have much to do. So he was just kind of there. But I think that, I think Poro will play because I think Ange kind of knows what his back four is. I genuinely feel like he wants to play that back four every game, and he'll stick with it. And Bissouma will be the man and until he can't. And we're going to have there's no reason to make massive changes. As good as Arsenal are, even if it's City away, the best way to hurt City is if you have the ball. And if Ange really believes that Poro will keep the ball better than Emerson, then he's going to start.
Is Martinelli injured?
He came out of the last game. He didn't play tonight.
Like he did his hamstring, but it wasn't like a tear. It wasn't anything bad. He felt his hamstring, so they took him off, and he obviously didn't play tonight. So I don't think it's been announced either way, but I would suspect they won't play him. Trossard scored as well tonight, so assuming Trossard played in that position, it would make sense for Arteta to just say, right, you guys are actually working well together. Yeah. Stick with it.
So Jack, you're going with the same starting 11 started against Sheffield United?
Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't think you make any changes. I think you go with the exact same 11.
Right. So let's have.
I would have made a change.
Oh, go on then. Let's.
I would have
before we go into.
You would have had Ivan play.
Yeah, I'd have had Perisic start.
Yeah.
I just think the added experience. I think it helps Spurs to have a left footer down the left to provide that width. I think Ben White is not someone you really need to worry too much about attacking wise, and so I just think that it would have been an okay move, not a sideways move, not a negative move, but actually one that would have helped Spurs. But now he's injured. I don't think anything's going to change.
No, Brennan's still on the bench then. Brennan Johnson's still on the bench.
He will come in. Maybe he will be to play. Maybe he will play down the left. I mean, Ange just spent a lot of money on him, so I think he wants to see him pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And Solomon again didn't play badly against Sheffield United, but you could sit there and say, well, where is Ange going to go? I could see him making that change, but I just think down the left it fits Solomon more than it does Johnson.
Yeah. That could be the now that I think about it, that would potentially be the change because he's not afraid to drop a player who scores. You could see Decky on the bench and Johnson down the right too, and still play Solomon. I mean, the reality is that we have, even with Perisic's injury, we do have a lot of various options and combinations across the front line that you can play. So it does help in the sense that it doesn't give Arteta he can't just assume that he knows what he's going to face. So they have to plan for a couple of different contingencies, which is always good. Unlike last season where we knew exactly what, everyone knew exactly what they were going to get. And it wasn't hard to game plan against.
Yeah. And you're right. And Johnson up against Zinchenko, I wouldn't mind seeing that. And the idea of doing it after an hour because Zinchenko will be knackered. I'm like, well, they'll just take Zinchenko off and bring on someone else. Like, they're not going to keep him there the whole game. So I think that if you really believe that Johnson can get at Zinchenko, and Zinchenko, I think almost certainly will start, then you make that choice. And from what you've seen with Arsenal, they've played right footers at left back for some of the season. Right, Timber started there. They brought Tomiyasu in, and then Zinchenko came back from injury and has been playing there. And they do seem to be better with a back four that's much more similar to what they had last year. Yep. But as you saw at the back end of last season, when Arsenal struggled, a lot of those goals came down Zinchenko's side. Liverpool's goal did. So a lot of the goals did. And so you could think, if you want to be super attacking, you play Johnson, and maybe you move Kulusevski to the position where Sarr is. I wouldn't do that. But I could see that might happen at some point in the game.
Well, I'm just about to bring in. I don't want to get pouters in the comments. I'm just putting a question out there. Would you bring Højbjerg into the midfield three? Maybe at the expense of Sarr. Obviously not Basuma or Maddison. I think Sarr's the one. If ever you're going to switch it up, more likely to be him. Jack, any chance of maybe that just to thicken it up a little bit, or do you think no chance?
No chance. Sarr, I think if he's getting overshadowed by the brilliance of Maddison and Basuma, but if you look at him and you look at the some of the statistics, our stats guru, who happens to live upstairs in my house, had some chart he showed me that where I don't know what it is, what's the left axis and what the right axis is, but Sarr is like far and above the best at something. He's going to kill me for not remembering, but the point is, Sarr has played very, very well. He's both reliable on the ball. He's both got an eye for a pass. He plays stronger and bigger than his thin frame suggests. I would not bring him out under any circumstances. Now, to manage the game, if you're actually trying to get a result, then yes, that's where Højbjerg can come in and help you. But I would not play him from the start, not a bit. And I'm a huge, by the way, we've got a number 5 jersey in my house. So, I mean, we are fans of Højbjerg, but no, he doesn't start.
Yeah, as people know, I think I don't think he's a first team starter anymore at Spurs. I think we've moved on from that. I do like him, but HG, would you bring him in, or do you think you stick with what you got? You've got the legs of Sarr, and you use Højbjerg as we've been using him.
I feel like if Sarr is going to not start the game, then it's because we want to be more attacking rather than to replace and have someone else who can do what Sarr does, but maybe not as well. That would be the decision here. Like if you really wanted to go attacking, then maybe Kulusevski is the 8 and Brennan Johnson is the 10, or is the right winger, right? Maybe that would be an option, but that would feel very, very attacking. I mean, you made like a team where you had 2 defensive players in it. Like Sarr is not Sarr is not exactly a defensive player, but the amount of times against Sheffield United, the amount of times I saw him do something that was actually good in the game, it involved winning the ball back whenever Sheffield United looked like they were breaking, because he had the pace to get back and he could stick his long leg out and tow the ball away. He wasn't great going forward. He wasn't great when we had the ball and when he needed to be part of that creative system. We got better once he was off the pitch, right? Once Kulusevski had moved back, once Højbjerg was on, that's when we got better. So Sarr has a role to play, but I think away against Arsenal, it's one of the games where Sarr is almost certainly going to be that option.
Yeah. So we'll get to the nitty gritty now, Jack. Let's have your score prediction for the game.
2-2.
Desmond, like that. And what about you, HG? What's your how do you see it? What's it's with a few truth. It's with a truth bomb. What do you think?
A truth bomb. I expect we're going to lose 2-0.
Yeah,
I expect we're going to lose because it's Arsenal, and like I don't want to be that guy who predicts the defeat because then you're always happy if it doesn't happen. And you're happy if it does because you can laud it. No, I'm not interested in that. I don't want that to be the case. But I prepare myself for that. I prepare myself that Spurs won't show up and that we'll be there, but we'll be traffic cones. Right? There was a famous game 15 years ago, where I think they beat us 3-0 and he scored 2 goals in about 20 seconds. They went straight from the restart.
Fabregas.
Yeah, I think it was. And I remember that game, and I remember leaving the pub and just thinking, I'm glad I live in Vienna because I can forget about the North London Derby. Like I was with my girlfriend at the time. Right. I was like, we're going to have some fun, and I'm going to forget that football even exists. Like, that's the Spurs that I, not often, but I do almost expect it to be there. I hope Ange will be different. I expect it to be different, but I'm preparing myself for for us to bend over, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, when we go to the Emirates or Anfield, we get nothing. But more often than not, we get very little there. And I always say, when to try and make myself feel better, I think we're due, and I do think we're due a win in the league at the Emirates. But I think we'll lose. I do think we'll lose. But I think it will be like 3-2. I think we'll give a good account of ourselves. I think we've been there last few like under Nuno, when there's literally, they put that picture up and there's no midfield. And then last year, Conte's waving the white flag, getting ready. I don't think there'll be any of that nonsense this time. I genuinely think we will we will have a go.
This would suck, but I could see this being very Spurs. Let's say we do what we did, a while ago. We go up 2-0. Right, we've done that at the Emirates a couple of times.
Don't. Yeah.
No, but like we go up 2-0. Look, I don't think a 5-2 will happen.
No.
But it will be one of those where we could have won. Maybe we should have won. We've got a point. It's like the 2-2 that Jack talked about. This could happen, right? This idea like we go ahead, it's looking good, and then Arsenal get the head of steam, and they get one back, and we start to buckle a little bit. And at the end of it, everyone can be happy because the Kings are happy they've got a point. We can be happy we've got a point. We can sit here and talk about how Ange said we're going to have ups and downs, praying that an away draw at the Emirates is a down, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. If that's one of the downs, sign me up. But I've been there enough times as a Spurs fan to know that we went to Man United and went 2-0 up and lost by 5. Like it's that kind of this is what Spurs can do. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. But it's more about us. Right, like if this is who we're going to be, and we're going to take the game to whoever we play, and we're going to play the same way regardless, and we're going to trust our players to be good enough to handle whatever is going on, brilliant, right? Even if we lose, brilliant, because you will get better at doing that. We're 6 games in, right? So, like, if that was to happen, it would hurt, but I would be thinking, you know what, Spurs right now should only get better. Over the season, as we get used to what he wants, we should only get better. A lot of us thought we might start with 1 or 2 wins, not 4 out of 5. Not sitting here thinking we could be joint top. Maybe we should be joint top. But like we're hoping that that we don't plateau right now. We'll win another game, and then maybe the Liverpool game we won't win. I won't say we'll lose, but we won't win that one. But like I want our downers to be, away draws against a big 6 side. I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're going there, but at least we're going there with hope, aren't we? I know it's the hope that kills you, I said, but we're going there with a bit of hope, aren't we? Which is...
Gibbo, that's how I am with every game. Even if it's Sheffield United at home, I have hope. I do not have expectation. I had expectation once as a Spurs fan, and we lost 4-1. The worst day of my Spurs support in life, without a doubt, because I went there thinking we were going to win, expecting that we were going to win, and then we didn't, and we were awful. So
that were in the semi-final of the FA Cup, Everton.
It was. Right,
Yeah,
I did
that
the
was a
coach journey
bad.
up from White Hart Lane as what would I have been, 16? Right,
Yeah,
I went
you
to
would
the
have, yeah.
quarterfinal at Liverpool where we won. I was like, this is it. It's our year. I believed all the nonsense that's spoken. Spurs are going to win the cup. We weren't in the cup at the start of the year. We got reinstated. We're now in the semi-final. We're playing a crap team. We're going to go and do it. And we got slaughtered. And it wasn't, a 4-1 was justified. We were
I lost the cup
day.
final that day as well. I played in a cup final that day, and I lost the cup final.
That's made the day worse for me, Gibbo. Thanks.
Yeah. And then
That's
Spurs.
enough.
Then literally everybody wanted that Spurs Man United final, didn't they? Everton were the dogs of war then. Yeah. Daniel Amakachi ran on the pitch. They weren't even going to put him on, were they? He just ran on.
I just no. Genuinely, that was the last time I went to a Spurs game with expectation. I now go to support, and I hope that we'll win. Look, I understand that there are games that we should win, but I never have that expectation. I hope that Spurs do what they can, because if we do what we can beat anyone. We've proven that. But being consistent is something that we've struggled with for a number of seasons. Frankly, only one season of my life. Yeah, exactly. One season of my life have we been consistent. Right? So that's what I want from Spurs. I want to see consistent performance. Like, you may play really well and the team will score one off their arse and you lose the game, right? But you've done all you can. That's all I really want to be able to say. I don't want to be sitting here thinking, if we'd have done this, or we should have done that, or that was a bad... Like, no, I want it to be, Spurs are going to go out there, we're going to play our game. If we can't because Arsenal were good, so be it. We'll learn, we'll get better next time. But that has to be the way. There's no expectation from me, ever.
No. Well, we'll leave all the positive. Hopefully, the Friday gang. We'll give them a load of positive predictions. But, Jack, thanks for coming on, mate.
Sure thing.
It was obviously a little bit late notice. Like I said, Craig's off sunning himself in Spain, so you've done a lovely job stepping in for him. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. I'm always happy to come on and with you two. It's you guys are the height of my day. No question about it.
Thank you, Jack. Lovely. That is lovely to hear that. HG, obviously, you've managed. I think like how animated you've been getting about all the things we spoke about. It's got you through.
I genuinely don't feel the pain in my shoulder right now. I'm sweating buckets.
Spurs are masking the pain for a change rather than causing the pain. That is where we're at the minute.
Wow, what a turnaround.
I should end it by saying the only reason we have this is Ange. I mean, the only reason we have Ange is because of Levy. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
I had to do a parting shot.
So before we go, all we've got to say is Levy in and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Ange, baby, Ange. We are your Ange.